Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. Happy 4th of July to you. Happy 4th of July to my American friends anyway. The rest of you, happy, July 4th. Today is Daily Art Adventure 645. I had to read it myself. And I'm out in the hot garage again. I know that white is not a good color to wear when you're broadcasting. And I'm sorry about that. Hello, Uncle 60. I already had coffee. I think it's earlier where you are than I am. I've been painting for a couple hours already. And I guess I'll show you what's going on here. I'm pretty happy, fairly happy with it. What's going on, there's the top part of the painting is done at this level, at this stage. You can see lots of the crazy abstract stuff happening. But now I'm finally down to the foreground. And I just finished a few minutes ago doing outline with these pencils. And even though most of the time, of course, when I'm using these pencils, they're primarily for texture. They, of course, are also excellent tools for making lines, details. What's the word I'm looking for? Accuracy, similitude, realism. So that's what I was using them for here just a few minutes ago. So let's proceed. And I will tell you, as I remind myself, the biggest mistake I could make down here in this foreground would be doing too much of everything. Too much of anything would be too much of everything. I've just mixed up some. Sorry, now that I got the camera all adjusted, I moved the painting. Forgive me. There we go. I've just mixed up some dark, transparent stuff. There's a few places here and there where this car got turned into two cars, for instance. So I'm going to try to ride the brakes and not do too much. That's just the main thing. Don't do too much. Don't explain too much. All the way over here. Should I make these windows darker because in the photograph they're darker? Let me check the photograph. Oh yeah, they're quite dark in the photograph. Tell you what, I'm going to tape this right here. Oops. Right. You trying to get by?
There's a mosquito.
Oh, good. Did you get him?
Yep. I pinched him.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm discovering that one of the things that my challenge to myself of retaining more of the underpainting, right? That's for you guys who are regulars. That's the job, that's the task before me here on this painting. It's had the unexpected benefit, having that task in front of me has had the unexpected benefit of keeping me looser all the way around. Which is good, right? Because it's good for all of us normally. And my task, my what's the word I'm looking for? Objective in this season of my life is very much to be more accurate and more loose or messy. That's been an objective for several years, and I think with this painting some light bulb came on, and I think I'm closer to achieving that than ever before. And a big part of it is just trying to keep my original abstract painting. Those of you who don't know, if you're new watching me, let me explain real quickly. For the last couple of years, with virtually every painting I do, before I start the painting per se, I do a simple abstract painting covering the whole canvas. In the abstract painting, I try to make it the opposite of whatever the final image is going to be. Hang on just a second, I'm trying to decide what to do next. So that's what you saw earlier. Let me point up there again just for a second. See all those stripes and so forth up there in the sky. Those are all vestiges of the underpainting still showing through. These big red stripes, those are some of the most obvious right at the moment here at the bottom of the painting. All right, so I'm going to do not foreground. For some reason I'm inclined to do here the distance, middle distance here, I guess you'd call it. I'm using very pale yellow tan, very close to Naples yellow. It's actually, and I had some Naples yellow on the palette, but this is actually titanium white and yellow ochre. Not talking very well today, am I? Sometimes I have a hard time toggling back and forth between my painting brain and my talking brain. And yes, my painting brain is quite a bit more important when I'm painting than my talking brain. So you guys get the short end of that deal. All right, there's a crosswalk right across the middle of this street, and it's marked out by hash marks, I would call it, white, big white squares. You'll see, or maybe you can already see it. Yeah, you can probably see it already. They're not actually square, they're stripes across the street, but because of foreshortening, they appear to us as little trapezoids, closer to square than a rectangle. I can go ahead and right at the moment, there's way too much pencil seen in them. So with this fairly neutral colored light, I'm going to push out some of the pencil marks. When I'm using the pencils, especially in the early stages of the painting, I really don't worry too much about overdoing it for this very reason, because I know that I'm going to come back at a later stage and paint on top, usually, and I can push back the pencil marks at that time if I feel the need, which I do. So easy fix. Right now I'm actually erasing, so to speak, covering up some more of those pencil marks. Right. Now let's go back to the stripes themselves, and I'm mixing up a lighter version of what I had on my brushes just a few minutes ago. Right, because I say this all the time. I'm going to say it in different language this time. If you have one color of paint, any given color of opaque paint on your brushes in my case, and you put that one color over much of the painting. For instance, in this case, I put the same color all the way across. Because it's fast and easy, and time is of the essence. I have not got years and years to finish this painting. So I don't remix the color after every stroke, right? So I put the same color across the painting. That's what I think an artist needs to understand, that is not a pleasant effect. And I'm not saying that any viewer, a person who looks at our paintings, they would not look at it and say, hey, wait a minute. The artist used the same color here, and here. No. That's not the way art works. But subconsciously, they wouldn't have any idea what was bothering them. But I guess I call it their subconscious, even though I know that term is out of vogue. But their subconscious, some part of their brain would detect that, and it would be registered as a mild unpleasantness, because it's not various, it's not varied, it's redundant, and that's an unpleasant effect. I'm actually coming back with pencil right now, but now the pencil that I'm doing is much more abstract. So just I'm using the pencil essentially for creating texture, not for achieving realism. I like this color I've got on my brushes right now, so I'll use it in a few places. But if I do, then what do I need to be careful, perhaps, to discern, to see? Yeah, what I just stated a minute ago. It's a redundancy. It's a repetition, an unpleasant repetition. If the mind, even the subconscious, unconscious mind, detects the use of the same color here, 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 and here. That's unpleasant. So to remedy that, it's real easy. You just mix up. Usually it's easiest to do it right next. So I've just mixed up a slightly lighter color than what I just put down. And here and there, it really doesn't matter where you put down a slightly lighter version of what you just placed a moment ago on the painting. Now I'm finding the color that's on my paint, on my brush right now, I'm finding it quite pleasant. So I'm doing essentially the same thing again. And by the way, at the moment, am I on the screen good? Yep, I am. At the moment, these marks are purely abstract. I'm just playing around with the blue stripes to go this way, which is part of the original underpainting, and red stripes to go this way. Right? It has nothing whatsoever to do with reality. Right? I want to make sure you understand that. And sometimes now let me interrupt myself. Sometimes, let me come back to that sentence in a minute. Please understand, I'm making the same quote-unquote mistake right now that I made just a few minutes ago, which is one color on my brushes, and I'm putting it here, 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 right? But of course, it's not going to stay a mistake, right? Because I'm aware of it. Therefore, what am I going to do? Correct. I'm going to come back. If you can learn this, just this one practice, it will probably improve your painting significantly, as it has mine. Just stumbling on this principle has been a huge benefit. Okay, so I've put, again, this, whatever color this is, it's a very dull brownish gray, a mid-tone, light, fairly light colored brownish gray. So in a minute, I'm going to reach over to my palette over there. I'm going to keep these brushes dirty, keep them just the way they are, and I'm going to add titanium white. Right now, I'm just having a ball doing this abstract stuff. Okay, so at the moment, this is my favorite part of the painting. And by the way, that's a really good way to feel about a painting. Right now, this is my favorite part. All right, so now I reach over here, dirty brushes, pick up some titanium white, mix it with the little pile that I had going a minute ago. So now I have a slightly lighter, and those words are important. It can't be a lot lighter. It will not have the effect. And I just need to touch here and there and here and there. Not everywhere where I put that earlier color, just a little here and a little there. And it's as if it breaks up the, I don't know, I want to say, this is kind of silly, it breaks up the surface tension. That doesn't make any sense at all, but it sounds good. It's like it pops the bubble of redundancy. I was being redundant a few minutes ago, doing the same color, in too many places, but now I fixed it. And it was a very simple fix, as you saw. Ooh, it's a good color to changing the design of this van up here. Again, I'm using a photograph. Oh, you can see it right here in front of me. And I did the vehicles, especially these here in the front, the two in the front corners, fairly accurately. But this van here was kind of a funky, strange, looked like a European impression kind of design to me. And I changed it to an American style van, if I can be ridiculously simplistic about it. So now it just looks like a plain old panel van. I added windows to the back of it and so on. All right, I don't have anything else right now I have to do, so I'm going to clean these brushes. By the way, I really do admire the way Mark Carter, that's with a D, Big Dog, famous painter, and really good teacher on YouTube. I do admire the way that he doesn't use a solvent to clean his brushes. And I've tried to move in that direction. And honestly, I'm feeling like it might just be a little bit too much of a old dog, new tricks. He's influenced me in that I try to use the solvent less than I used to for cleaning my brushes, but I don't seem to be able to get away from a just ingrained habit. I think one of his main reasons is for fumes. He also does all kinds of crazy things with his brushes. Clove, the spice clove. I think it is a drop of clove on his brushes to keep them so they never dry. And then he has, if he's gone on a long trip, he has neighbors come in and and reapply a drop of clove to each of his brushes. Like, wow, that is some serious something there. Anyway, to each his own. I admire him. I wish I could do it. Probably not going to happen. There are worse things, bigger things in the world. Bigger fish to fry. Expression seems to come to mind. All right, so right at the moment, I'm going to do some tail lights, and I'm looking now that there should be some stoplights up here. Yeah, there are indeed. So that was a medium tone, mid-tone, number 5, and 0 to 10, red. Now I'm going to make that lighter and warmer. So I'm adding orange and titanium white to what was already on my brushes. If you just add white to red, of course you get a sickly bubblegum pink, as I usually say. In fact, I discovered some months ago that I don't like pink. And once I realized that, I realized that's a weakness. An artist, honestly, an artist, I don't think, cannot have that kind of prejudice. I mean, that's just silly. So then I have since then made a point to introduce, to make sure I have at least a tiny bit of bubblegum pink, as I call it, somewhere in my painting. In fact, so that I have it right there, and elsewhere as well, but at least it's right there. Anyway, the point was, if you just add white to red, it doesn't feel like a light red, if you will. It feels like pink. So you have to warm it up. In my opinion, you have to warm it up quite a bit with yellow, and Indian yellow works very well in that regard. But same operation again, same process right now. Adding a bunch of titanium white and quite a generous dab of Indian yellow. So it's a pale peach-ish color. Painting in concentric circles. Do you understand? In other words, the red glow was big, then the second layer was smaller. This is the third layer, it's smaller again. And I'll probably do one more layer, maybe two. A little bit of reflection down here on the road. Same thing up here in stoplights. I've talked about this before, so if you've heard it too much, I apologize for the repetition. But the challenge, the quiz, the question of how to, I'm going to use my fingers for a second here, how to indicate that colored lights in your painting. So obviously I face this a lot in my cityscapes. Tail lights and traffic lights, green or red or yellow. I never do yellow, by the way. It's just too, what's the word? Obscure. So if you paint a a red stoplight, let's say, red all the way to the middle, no matter how much you mix and how you hold your mouth and so forth, it will not look like a bright red light. And that are the optical illusion just is not there. Just cannot be done. So the only way to achieve the impression of a bright red light is to make the light fade to either to white or to very pale yellow. So right now I'm mixing up a very pale yellow on my brushes, and this might be the last dab that I do on these lights. Now the irony is that when you and I are out in the real world, when we look at red traffic lights or tail lights, we can stare right at the dead center of those red traffic lights, and they are red right all the way to the middle. You say, no, it's not white in the middle of that. What's the matter with you? But if you try to paint that, it won't look. I do have a question about that. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how we could figure it out. But I do wonder if, see now this, let me zoom in just for a second. That looks like red lights that are bright, lit up. Looks like brake lights, doesn't it? But you see, it goes white, or almost white, it's actually pale yellow at the center, and then has a red aura around it. That gives the impression. By the way, if you don't know this trick, now you do. Take note, learn it. But the irony, that is not the way our eyes see red lights. If we were standing here in the street and we looked at those tail lights, they'd be red all the way to the core. So the question, I was going to say that I don't know what the answer is. I wonder if photography has trained us, human beings in the West, in the last 200 years. I wonder if photography has trained us that is redness, that is red. Because that, in fact, that is exactly what photographs do to red lights. Are you following me? Hang on here a second. I've misplaced my Scarlet Lake and misplaced my stool for a second there. By the way, okay, Winsor Newton. They call this color Winsor red. I have no idea why I ever bought such a color. I'm a conscientious objector. I object to paint companies giving their colors funky names. And you beginners, oil painters, maybe won't even know what I'm talking about. Most paint colors are designated. Well, I'm not finding it, so that's too bad. This is, they've got in fine print underneath it, it's a pyro red. Most colors in the art world are designated by their pigment name. In other words, it's ultramarine blue. Whereas if you go and get little kitty colors, crayon colors, they call it sky blue or, you know, dusty rose, you know, those kinds of designer names. And it's irritating, I think, to artists for, like in this case, Winsor Newton, who's a good company, but they call this Winsor red. Well, what the crap is that? That's meaningless to us. Now, fortunately, in fine print, they put underneath it, okay, it's pyro red. And then we go, oh, pyro. You see, because these pigments are supposed to be more or less consistent. Since I've gotten this deep into it, some of you may or may not know that all good paints, they have a pigment number on the back, real fine print. It says pigment, and then there's a word, the letter P for pigment, and then a number. And that number is, and you, by the way, with your phone, you can Google this. You just type into Google or say into Google, pigment PV23. In this case, this is Winsor Violet, and then again, which is a meaningless term. Windsor violet, what the heck does that mean? That's meaning, except, thank you, Windsor. So they're doing it right. They put it in parentheses, dioxazine. But between you and me, that's all we care about. They would rather call this dioxazine violet. And then we don't have to, as artists, we don't have to scratch our heads and wonder what color that is. We go, oh, it's dioxazine. Because after a while, as an artist, just with familiarity, you'll begin to recognize and understand these pigment colors. So you don't have to wonder, if you will. You don't have to wonder what color this or that is, because the pigment will tell you. Like you never wonder when if you buy a tube that now student grade paint, they do crazy things, but staying in the respectable range of pigments. When you buy a tube of phthalo blue, you don't wonder at all what's in that tube. The answer is it's phthalo blue. Now, there is some variation from one company to another. There is indeed, as we all have discovered, sometimes to our chagrin. But at least it gets us in the ballpark. I mean, and then little by little, as an artist, at least this is the way it's been for me. I can't imagine like making a life study of comparing pigments. That would just be horrible. So you at least for me, I don't make a study. You just little by little, you discover, like, for instance, in my case, the Charvan Paint Company, I love their oxide red, although Rembrandt transparent red oxide is also very good. Here's one that I like a lot. This is Michael Harding, very good paints, permanent green light. Now, and you'll discover that one company disagrees with another company exactly what those colors should be. But little by little, you'll discover, like, oh, Michael Harding, I like his permanent green. Does that make sense? People ask me online all the time, what brand do I use? Okay, I'm going to answer that question right now. And I sort of never know what to say when people say that, but I'm going to give you the answer. Here's the funny answer. It is whatever on sale. Haha. Okay, done with that. Here's the truth. You should not, first of all, you shouldn't use any color because some other artists use that color. You shouldn't use any brand because some other artists use that brand. That's what I think. That's what I really think. Tell us how you feel, Dan. That's it. Don't use anything because your favorite artist does. Here's the answer: experiment. So when people ask me what brand do I use, the answer is, what in the heck? Who knows? I'm always experimenting. Now, that's not literally true, because I just told you, I know that Charvan transparent red oxide, or red oxide, is one of my favorites. Okay, but there's some other things. There's a phthalo blue that I like to avoid. Usually, I won't anyway. And it's, oh yeah, Georgian. I don't care terribly much for Georgian's opinion of what phthalo blue should look like. But you don't have to. Don't do that. Pay no attention to what I'm saying right now. In other words, I mean, as far as your own side, no. Experiment, and you use what you like. Don't ever use something because your favorite artists use it. That's just their personality. That's just my personality. It's just my little preference. You should not, I don't think, hardly even be influenced by that. Why do I use the colors I use? Well, first of all, half the tubes in all my are experiments. I'm at the store. They have 14 different brands, at least where I go, which is a nice luxury. There's a couple colors that I'll always get. I'm not gonna, and I already told you one. That's enough. I guess I told you two. I'll be sure to get those. But then I go, I wonder what Rembrandt phthalo blue looks like. So I'll buy a tube of phthalo and experiment. That's what I recommend. Experiment. Just play around. Try this, try that, try this, try that. That's what I think you should do. Besides, buy what's on sale. All right, so I just did the glow on the headlights coming this way, as you can see. So that gives us a lot more light. I'm not sure where to go next. Oh, I know. Well, well I know. I'm sure that thrills your heart. Oh, thank God he knows what to do next. Some of you were worried for a second there. I'm mixing up a warm off-white, I guess. They're over here on these cars. There's several little bits of lightness that I want to add. Partly for realism, but also partly for lightness. That is, there's, you can see that. Let me zoom in for you just for a second. You can see all this drawing here, by the way, was done in the acrylic stage. Okay, and I like it. I'm quite happy with the drawing, but it's a little bit heavy, a little bit too dark. So just with this light colored paint, I'm coming and covering up little bits of my dark marks. I just want the effect to be over here to be more pale. Okay, since I've gone this far, let me tell you what other trick I'm doing. I've just stumbled on this trick, especially for cars. No, I should say cars and pedestrians. This trick works particularly well when you're. As you can see, these cars are quite up close. Same thing over at the other side. Okay. They're quite close, and they're getting a little bit too much attention. Therefore, I'm going to camouflage them, not unlike a chameleon, you know, sits on a green leaf and the chameleon turns green, right? That's what I'm going to do with these cars. I'm going to, I'm not going to cover up the drawing, but I'm going to make the cars closer to the color of what's around them. Camouflage or chameleon effect. Does that make sense? So that the effect will be, it allows me to end up having these cars actually pretty realistically rendered. But right now there's too much energy. We're paying too much attention to these things. So I'm going to paint the cars closer to the color of the colors that are around them. So I have a little ways to go. We're here trying to mix up a dirty orange. Because there's quite a bit of, let's see, it's too red, more yellow. There's quite a bit of orangish stuff over here. It's too bright. So Do you see this shaft of orange brown color that starts up here and comes down like this? So I'm just describing how I'm doing this chameleon trick. I'm making the car more or less the same color as that stripe. So then the car is demanding slightly less attention, drawing slightly less attention to itself. I'm not obliterating all the drawing. I'm just painting around it, leaving the lines, the dark lines, a little bit skinnier in most cases. Getting back to a bluish color now. So that's a trick worth knowing. I'm going to mix up a dirty blue-green now, because there's quite a bit of dirty blue-green in the vicinity over here. Do you see how, I don't know if you can see the effect now, this car is sort of disappearing, quote unquote. Not really. You can look at it and easily see that it's a car, and it's a fairly carefully drawn, accurately rendered car. So I'm using the accuracy of the drawing to retain the illusion, the realism that that's a car. Are you with me? But I'm using color now to push all my lines back. Do you see? So it's sort of, I've discovered this, stumbled on this trick, again, because I do a lot of cityscapes. And in particular, I've done this with cars, discovered it's a good trick because I want, if I don't have cars up here, it wouldn't look like a city. It would look like nobody's home. It would look like a city on holiday, which is not the feel or the effect that I want. I remember 3 or 4 years ago, I did a commission for someone. I forget exactly what the assignment was, but it was a city street. And when I showed my client the finished, what I thought was the finished painting, it had a car in the foreground because it was a city street, right? Makes sense? And she said, "Oh, I don't like that car. It's gets too much attention." That was before I knew this trick. I'm not sure it would have made the difference, but it might have. So I obediently, because she was paying the bill, I did what she asked, and I made the car. I obliterated the car, but then she was stuck. She accepted it. Then she was stuck with this great big honking slab of asphalt in the foreground, and it didn't have the same. It didn't have the same city street feeling, because that's not what city streets look like. City streets usually have cars on them. Anyway, so that was, I'm not sure that's where but that comes to mind often, that episode when I do this here trick. It dawns on me, I have enough people who are not native English speakers watching me. I should try to make a point whenever I'm using wrong English. I had a friend from Russia saying he was watching me to learn how to paint, then discovered he was learning English, and I went, whoops. Because I know English really well. I speak normally good grammar, but because of my quirky personality, I often butcher the grammar just on purpose. All right, now, while we're doing something, so do you see the cars have receded slightly? Now, there's still a little bit too much energy in here because of all my little dots. On my channel, we've coined the term dotification, which is what happens when you get too many dots. You've achieved dotification, which is not a good thing. Therefore, and this also happens, by the way, anytime where you've done too much fastidious or careful painting, tight painting, tight painting for too many minutes in a row will result in this kind of thing. So don't despair. Usually it can be fixed just like this. I've got a nice cotton rag. I get 2 or 3 fingers in it. Now, I'm sure you're noticing that I'm not going like this. Not smudging out my dots by making ugly marks. This is an ugly mark. You understand? God-awful ugly mark. Do not do that. So you can't get pleasant marks from unpleasant movements. We've talked about this many times. All right, I think I've achieved it. So I've just basically smudged a certain percentage. You know what? That rearview mirror right there, I can make that lighter. I've smudged a certain percent. I don't know what percent. It doesn't matter. I'm not talking math. I'm talking visual. Whoops! There goes my light. There we go. All right, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the slightly lighter feel over here too. I'd add quite a bit of light to the painting. I'm adding a little bit more as we speak. And then smudged some of my marks. Whew. All right, I think that's good enough, and that's probably a good place for me to stop. I've covered enough territory, and my light went out, so I need to go get a new battery. So let's pause there and let me read your chats, which I enjoy so much. Let's see who's here. Uncle 60, burning up the lines. Thank you, man. Whoa. Uncle says, oh, he took one message off about the coffee. Nothing wrong with that. I love that deep, darkest, mixed blue color sky. Up there? Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you. Me too. Do you retouch, seal, or vinyl varnish seal your paintings for consumers? Yes, very good question. Uncle 60 brings up a very good question. Anytime that I sell a painting directly to a customer, which you understand, at least over the decades, most of my paintings I haven't sold to a customer. I give them to the gallery, and the gallery sells them. So I feel bad about that because I'm not sure the gallery tells all their, by the way, this painting should be varnished. But I do tell my buyers, and I say, if you want to call me in 6 months, I'll either tell you how to varnish it or I'll varnish it for you, one or the other. So yes, it's way more important than we think. Hello, Thinker888. Have you ever considered mixing up the order of your process, doing the abstract painting at the end? Yes, very much so. In fact, with this painting, I'm discovering, in other words, Thinker is wondering, well, couldn't I do the abstract on top? Yes, but it does not have the same effect. I, in fact, am adding abstract stuff on top of this. Like this blue line right here. Let me make sure that I've got you going in the right direction. Okay, there we go. So this blue, for instance, that's a late addition. This blue line is late. This red line is. So I am in fact doing this yellow ochre line is applied late. So I am in fact doing that, but it doesn't have the same effect. Doing a painting and then doing random marks on top of it does not have the same feeling as having abstract marks underneath and seeing them through the painting. It's a very good question, and I'm struggling with that. Like here, if I cover up, if that looks like it's simply a pink slash on top of the sky, then I have not achieved my objective. It just looks like a pink slash on top of the blue sky. It's like, that's odd. But if you can tell that there was something underneath it that's behind the blue sky. So that's my answer, and I really have discovered that on this painting, that doing stuff. So to tell you the truth, so far in this painting, it's okay. I like it a lot, but I have not retained as much of the underpainting as I would like. So I'm still on this quest, journey, adventure to try to have more of the underpainting show through. So rely less on this, the third step of painting on top, and instead do more of painting around my abstract or wiping it off. But that is a very good question. That's my impression anyway, is it doesn't have the same feel if you add it late. Very good question. Uncle 60 asks a very good question related to what we talked about yesterday. As an artist, you are both the one who's interacting with the canvas, and then you can come back and also be an observer of your painting. Can you do that? Is a very good question. I'm sure, no, you can't completely. You can't do it perfectly. It helps to sleep on it, right? To come back a second day or a week later. And I mean, certainly when I look at a painting that I did 5 years ago, at that point, I'm pretty much the observer and seeing it through fresh eyes. It's always happy when I see a old painting of mine that whoa, that's pretty good. Because far too often it's like, I'm better now. So very good question. Yeah, sleeping on it is the best way to do it. The oil dip is freaky. Oh, you're talking about Mark Carter's strategy about safflower oil and 2% clove oil dip. Oh yeah. Do you do that? Anyway, maybe. I feel like if I was a better artist, I'd do that, but I don't. So there you go. You redip in the safflower clove solution every 2 weeks. That's good to know. Thank you, Uncle 60. Dip will dry after 2 weeks, so that's why he redips. It works and conditions the brushes, but it's hard to get it in your brain at first. Thanks for that formula. Safflower oil and 2% clove. Huh. I still, Horatio, Uncle 60 says, I still clean brushes, then use the homemade dip to condition them. That's my Mr. Felix Hunger thing. OCD. OC without the D. That's what I tell people. Uncle, I like it when you guys talk to each other. How long have you been painting? 3 years? Good for you. Good for you. Excellent. Good to have you guys on board. Yeah. Uncle 60 says, hey, let my Canadian accent out. Well, I was about to do that. That's so funny. Actually, to tell you the truth, every once in a while the word out, about, or house comes flying out of my mouth. And then I hear it, and then I laugh at myself. It's like, ha, that was a little bit of Canadian. That's about that's about the only Canadian accent left in me, except that I have permission, of course, because of my birth, to say a instead of huh. Thanks for inviting it. This was a joke. When I was a kid growing up, me and my brothers and sisters, we thought this was a great one. Does Canada have a 4th of July? No. Of course Canada has a 4th of July, but it's not on the 4th of July. Anyway, it's just a day on the calendar. Anyway, we thought that was funny when we were kids. Good for you guys. Thank you, Benji. Happy 4th to all of you. This will do me for today. Well, no, I'm painting. This will do me for this painting. I am painting at a party, 4th of July party later today, and if I can broadcast, I certainly will. I'm finishing that marina, coastal cityscape marina, at a party, and I'm hoping I can, as I said, I'm hoping I can broadcast there. Oh, just one more thing, again, just to let you know where we're going. This whole painting is going to get an entire glaze after it dries over the whole thing, and then I'll go in and so that'll make it darker, right? So then I'll follow up by making it lighter, and that will allow me to take some of these late, like there's a pencil line right here. It'll allow me to take some of these late abstract additions and tuck them in, so they too, what is right now, like I pointed out, this blue stripe is right on top. It's okay, but it doesn't have a great, it's like, why'd you do that blue stripe? Which by the glaze will diffuse that somewhat. And then if I paint up to it, then that blue stripe won't be on top anymore. It'll be tucked back underneath, and we'll have some of the magic that I'm looking for with my crazy abstract stuff. All right, so that's just where we're going. Thank you guys. Appreciate your company very much. And like I said, I'll try to broadcast later today. Bye-bye. Any last chats while I was saying all that stuff? Yep.